Nice to meet you all. So, last year I gave you some general tips and tricks of Zabbix. This year I will give you some more tips how to monitor your security with Zabbix. So, why you need to monitor security? Because you can have multiple issues. Your server may look like nice and shiny, but you never know what's happening inside. Yes, so there may be some software bugs, software vulnerabilities, weak configurations, and other things. Yes, so it is recommended to monitor your security. And why Zabbix? You may say that Zabbix is not a dedicated security monitoring tool. That's true, but you can do a lot of things out of the box with Zabbix. You can monitor your config files, you can monitor your log files, you can catch SNMP traps, and do much, much more. I will try to show you just a few use cases which may be useful in your environment. So let's start. First, very simple thing which is available, I think, since the very first versions of Zabbix, checksum monitoring. Very simple. Works out of box. You may use Zabbix agent built-in key. Very simple to set up. Yes, just agent, just simple key. Very efficient. Two types of checksums are supported. So you can just count 32-bit checksum, or if you need, you can calculate MD5 hash. How it works? If somebody will change your password file, if somebody will change your configuration file, the checksum will change. So here's the checksum. Any change, the checksum will change. You will get alert in Zabbix. Yes. Some of the checksum monitoring is already included in the default Linux template, like password file. But you can monitor any file. It is up to you. Just monitor any file which is really important to you. Next, config files. With Zabbix, you can also monitor your configuration. Yes, because Zabbix can read config files, and config files, they can contain known weaknesses, and they also, by default, gives a lot of information to the world. And some people, by intention or just randomly having fun, can use those vulnerabilities to hack into your system. So it is really recommended to do some hardening on configuration. And how to do it? With Zabbix, you can use very simple key, which is file contents, which will read the contents of the file. But you may say, OK, I have contents of the file in Zabbix, so what to do with it? If you have attended to my workshop, yes, and by the way, here you can use also macro, which is more efficient. If you have attended to my workshop, I gave you example. You can take a config file, and from the config file, you can extract some parameters which are very important to you. Like here, yes, I'm having config file, dependent items, and here I'm extracting information. If the information is not set, I will set it to the default. If the information is not found, which this means in config file this is default. So I'm setting this to default here, extracting information, and I'm using this monitoring very efficient way because your config files are not changing constantly. Yes, you can monitor them like every minute, but they will not change every minute. Yes, so I'm monitoring every minute, but just storing information for every hour to save disk space. And then you have this in Zabbix. Here, the last value is full, which is not recommended for production. You need prod, and Zabbix will give you alert. Yes, so you can find the most common vulnerabilities using this technique. But let's say that I'm not a security expert. I'm a Zabbix expert, but not security expert. So actually, what to do? There are a lot of tools which can be integrated with Zabbix. A lot of scripts, a lot of other programs. And you can use those programs, you can call them from Zabbix and let those programs to analyze the Zabbix. How it works? Very simple. You have external checksum program which will create a report. From the report, you will create dependent items, and you will create some triggers. And if something will go wrong, you will get an alert. How it looks in Zabbix? This is just some report from some security tool. Here it contains some potential vulnerabilities. Zabbix can process this. Yes, we had a lot of talks and workshops today on pre-processing, so you can use regular expressions, you can use JSON pass, you can use XML pass. If you are using Zabbix 4.4, you can use comma separated to JSON, and if that's not enough for you still, you can go and write some JavaScript. Okay, here, so all the options which you have, and this is how to extract. So let's say my report gave me a number of found vulnerabilities, like 5, and here you will have report. So here is a scan report, and you have done 200 different checks and found 5 potential vulnerabilities, which means maybe you need to go and fix something inside your configuration, yes, and do some hardening. But maybe you want more. Those who have attended to my workshop today, I have showed you some very advanced techniques. Like here, you may get this kind of security report, and you may say, how I can use something like that? Yes, that's absolutely unreadable. But you can launch a check, you can generate that report, and then you can process it with Zabbix LLD rule. Yes, this is not readable for you, but this is perfectly readable for Zabbix. And then you can create some dependent items. You can create some triggers like that. I will not go too deeply technically, because today there was a lot of speeches about LLD, but this is a JSON file. Here you are doing some discovery. Here you are extracting JSON path. Yes, here is a JSON path. Then you're creating some macros. And actually, it will start working out of box without any need for additional scripting or things like that. Yes, you will create dependent items. You will use JSON paths. You can later go through my presentation and find some examples. And actually, this is a nice report which you will get at the end. Yes, it will scan the report. It will find 5 vulnerabilities. It will create dependent items for them. And for every vulnerability which is found, it will give you a nice report. So now you can just read what's the problem, and you can fix it one by one, while this is clean. So very, very simple, actually. There is one problem. Sometimes those security scans, they can take a while, like 5 minutes to scan, check your certificates against something. So what to do? The execution time limit in Zabbix is 30 seconds. But in that case, you can just launch it as a cron job, or use other techniques, or even call it from another Zabbix item, like a new spawned check. And yes, you will get back your data. Next, services monitoring. My colleague, Alexei, yesterday told you about a new Zabbix agent 2, which is written in Go language. And now, if you are using this agent, you have 2 new discovery, 1 new key and 1 new discovery rule. So you can discover systemd services out of the box, which means if you have some very important services like firewalls or other services which helps to protect you from potential attacks, you can monitor that those services actually are running. Yes, very simple. Agent 2, this will not work with Zabbix agent 1. You need agent 2. Yes, use this key. It will check it every minute. If the firewall status will be inactive, you will get alert. This system is working without a firewall. It's not protected. Next, a very, very simple thing is a port monitoring. Yes, because Zabbix can monitor ports. We have NetTCP port simple check. Also, we have UDP port check. Yes, and also we have a discovery. So we can scan a network and we can find all the open ports which are listening to the world. Why? Because there are a lot of applications which has known security vulnerabilities. Yes, it is not recommended to have telnet, it is not recommended to have FTP, and a lot more applications. So you may need to know if something like that is listening on some of your systems. And as always, the golden rule, less open ports is more secure system. Yes, you need to, if you have web server, you need only web server listening and maybe SSH. That's all. Yes, no need to have other services listening which are actually not needed and which can have potential security issues. And another thing, you can scan your network. So how to do it? You need to define your network range. Then you need to define some reasonable interval, like 1 hour, and here you can check for open FTP ports, open telnet ports, and you can scan for some very weak SNMP communities. Yes, maybe some device is using the default SNMP public community, and some person can do something with your firewall or router or switch or whatever. So Zabbix will detect those, and then you can create hosts, you can create warnings, and Zabbix will say, hey, on some system I have detected like a public SNMP community, please fix it. Next. So now, today, actually the HTTPS is most commonly used web protocol. Yes, because it is not hard to set up, you need a certificate, and it is quite secure. It will secure your credentials, it will secure and protect your information. So you need to check, maybe some of your web pages are still accessible with HTTP, which is not recommended. In this case, you can use Zabbix web scenarios and check the response code. Because the web page may listen to HTTP, it's not a big problem. But most of the web pages, if you are trying to access the HTTP version of the page, it will automatically redirect you to the most secure HTTPS version. And it will give you back status code 301 moved permanently. So you will create a web check which will expect this status code, and it will say everything is okay. If it will return status code 200, it means your HTTP page returned something which is not good. So here, you can set up the web scenario. I have used our web page as example, and I'm expecting this. If you will do the test, you will get the same back. Here, the URL. Yes, and you must uncheck the follow redirects. Otherwise, it will automatically go to the secure site, and you will not get back that required status code which you are expecting. Next, but even if the web page is secured with HTTPS, it may still contain bad certificates on some other things. And I think starting from Zabbix version 2 already, you can do certificate verification with Zabbix. You can verify the peer, which is the web server certificate, and you can verify the host, which is a common name field here. Yes, and you can supply some of the certificates to Zabbix, and then Zabbix may say, hey, this host, it has some very, very strange certificate. Yes, it's not the host which you think of. So, yes, you can use this functionality. Yes, another problem with certificates is, you all know, they expire. In 1-2 years, they will expire, and you will need a new certificate. So you will be in a big trouble, because one day your very important web page will stop working properly. It's not possible directly out of the box, but if you will go to Zabbix integrations, there are some very simple, nice solutions which can check two things: time until expiration. So you can get some early warning, like certificate will expire in next 2 weeks, and you have enough time to buy a new one. Or if it will happen, you will have some large disaster alert, web page certificate expired, we are in big, big trouble. Yes, you will know this from Zabbix, not from your customers. SNMP traps. Why SNMP traps? Because a lot of network devices, they support SNMP traps, and you can define them on the device, yes? And when somebody will do the administrative logins or some very important ports will become up, down, or in my previous work, we were monitoring the devices by MAC address, and if some unknown device was plugged into the network, we get security alert immediately, some unknown device connected. Yes, or you can define some thresholds and do many more things. Yes, why it's very useful? Because it will happen immediately. Yes, it is not SNMP polling when Zabbix is polling device like every minute or 5 minutes. SNMP traps are sent by device to Zabbix immediately when the problem will happen. Yes, how it works? You have device, you define some trap, it's like just sending the trap. Next, you will have some SNMP trapper set up on Zabbix server. It will be cached by Zabbix, and you will get your alert. Yes, actually, it's quite simple to set up. There are very good guides on Zabbix webpage how to do it, and you can set it up in like 10 minutes, I think. Sensor monitoring. I will not talk a lot about sensor monitoring because I have seen one of the booths outside, actually. I think those guys know more about sensors than me. Yes, but Zabbix can monitor temperature sensors, smoke sensors, humidity sensors, door sensors, you know, the intrusion. Yes, it can monitor motion detection sensors. Actually, any sensor which has some kind of connectivity and wire and can send some signal can be monitored by Zabbix using SNMP, using some bus, or using any other technology. Yes, that depends on the sensor. Very useful. I really recommend monitoring your server rooms or other very important places that there is no high temperatures, no flooding, or things like that. And last, here, basically log files. You know, everything, all the information, if the system is properly configured, it is stored in the log files. And you may have a lot of log files, and you don't want to spend whole day going through the log files. So you can use Zabbix for this purpose and use the log file monitoring feature, which can monitor, just by example, unsuccessful logins, or sometimes actually you need to monitor even the successful logins when some user with very high privileges will log in. You maybe need to know about it. And also elevation of privileges. So the log file is looking like that. Yes, failed connection close, something like that. So Zabbix can parse the log file. It can detect and extract if needed. Starting from Zabbix 4.2, you actually can use log file as a master item and create dependent items, which may simplify the log monitoring. So you can separate one thing from other thing. You can separate logins from other things like unsuccessful connections or whatever. Yes, you may ask your security expert what you need to monitor inside the log files. Here, let's say I'm trying to do the sudo, but I'm not allowed to this. And when you are trying to do sudo and you are not allowed to do the sudo, you will have that nice message. This attempt will be sent to somebody. Yes? So Zabbix can catch this sudo fail event with simple regular expression, with some pre-processing. Here I'm creating dependent items. I will not go to technically inside this. Yes, but here I have the log file here, and here succeed logins are going to one item, failures to another item, and sudo fails to another item. So I'm processing this one currently. I can extract username, IP address, and things like that using the regsub. So I can extract information, and I can say not just sudo failed, but sudo failed by Kaspars. Kaspars tried to do something, and Kaspars tried to execute that command. So like that. The log line will be Kaspars tried to do a sudo and execute very dangerous command ping. as a Zabbix user. It was still logged. I have used those examples to extract information. And here, this is how it looks in the trigger. Here I'm extracting, you can see here I'm extracting the information from the log file. And here I'm using it in the tags, because tags are very useful. And here I will have alarm. So sudo attempt by user Kaspars command ping and tagged was my name. So you can use it later on dashboards or other places to do some very useful filtering. Can we monitor Windows logs? Yes, of course. Out of box, use different key, use different source like security, system log, application log, different severities. You can search for some event IDs. There is a huge documentation how to use the log files. I cannot tell you this in 20 minutes, yes? And last, so those were some very simple techniques. But maybe you already have some advanced system which is monitoring security and you want to integrate it with Zabbix. So then you can go to Zabbix integration page, click on security, and you will see a lot of those solutions. And as you can see, every day more and more solutions are coming there. And a lot of them actually are coming with your help. They are coming from the community. Yes, so you can help to develop this project and add more and more of your solutions if you really want to share them with us. Actually, that's all. 20 minutes done. Thank you very much for your attention.